Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is January 9th, 2024, and you are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today we have a really cool topic to talk about, the weight equation. Before we get into all that, what is that? What does that mean? We have Jyunmi, Beth, Andy. I'm Brian. We'll see if anybody else pops in today. But for now, you got the four of us. And this was kind of a cool topic that came up from who's becoming one of my favorite people to follow on X, aka Twitter, Ethan Malek. And I will be honest, I did not know who Ethan Malek was from a hole in the wall. It's only because of, I think, Beth and Jyunmi and Andy and all the other co-hosts on this show that you guys have shared stuff, and Carl and stuff like that. And for those that don't know who he is, he's a professor at the Wharton School. I'm not saying the whole name. But anyway, Wharton out of Pennsylvania or Philadelphia, I think it is. Wow, I'm really messing it up. Anyway, he's a professor, and he's a voice in the AI space. Very active on X as far as his tweets and things like that, and just puts out some really interesting stuff. And so I'll just share this really quick as our intro. But this is where this conversation came from. Here we go. And so, yeah, there we go at the top, and I'll just make it a little bit bigger for anybody that can see it, but I'll read it for you. I'm just sharing the screen from X, from tweet. And so this was from Ethan Malek, and he is referencing his own tweet back from August. So that original one said, if AI is really going to improve fast, it might actually pay to be lazy about some big long-term projects. Any rapidly improving technology can kick off a weight equation where you save time and money by procrastinating, since better tech will let you catch up. Then he referenced it again in December 20th, and he said, to be clear, I haven't seen any advice. Many of the implications are unclear, but I think about weight equations a lot. So weight equations, where does that come from? First of all, let's bring us back. There we go. So weight equations comes from the idea of deep space exploration. So that's where if you look up weight equations on Perplexity or Google or anywhere else, you're going to probably see something from deep space exploration. The idea being simply, if I build a rocket ship today and I launch it to some unknown part of the universe, would it be better to wait 5 years, have a significantly better rocket ship that has better propulsion, better fuel, better speed, whatever, that would essentially pass my ship that I launched today? Is it better to wait? Will new technology make it more advantageous to wait? So Ethan Malek is bringing up that idea of weight equations and bringing it to the AI landscape. There's lots of people on Reddit and places like that, as I found out this morning, who disagree with it being used in the AI context. But that is a great kickoff to this conversation. The weight equation as it applies to AI. Does it make sense? And this is going to be a nuanced answer, I know, but does it make sense to wait a little bit when it comes to like businesses of big, small businesses? Or is it better to dip your toe in today and get moving on AI, even if that means there might be some lost money, lost time, lost whatever? So I don't know. Andy, I'm going to kick it over to you first, because I feel like with all your experience and being our chief CXO in the room that we always like to go back to, what is your take on this as just a whole?
I love to be an explainer too. That's just my nature. So the big issue with the idea of the spaceship sailing, and then shortly thereafter another team or another implementation being able to supersede it, is that once the ship has sailed, you can't modify the ship or do it en route. Sure. But that's not true of AI. So, and that's not true of almost any sort of late era technology investment in networking and computing and so on. All of these things can be changed while in process. So then there's the whole issue of, the sort of organizational learning that's accomplished by getting launched now rather than waiting for a more economic set of tools. So you're going to learn a lot about what's needed and required in the context of your own business just by doing the smaller scale investments that are available today. I mean, you're not likely to, be a company that's going to build a platform, which is what a major investment is at these times, the cost of implementing some of those major platforms is very, very low. And the benefits internally in the organization in terms of literacy and understanding of what the potentials for application are, and just developing skills internally to accommodate the new technologies that are rapidly evolving, says you better get going now, at least, and put your toe in the water. So the weight equation does have merit. However, I guess I'm dismissing the weight equation in general for small companies or even large companies doing some sort of planned expectation that, hey, if we just wait, then we can bypass our competitors by taking advantage of new tools that will emerge. But there is some validity to that one, because we're so early in the sort of the flurry and chaos of development of all the tool sets that it's hard to determine what platform is the real one that you ought to learn and develop expertise around. Yeah. Because it does take some time to get familiar with and implement tools, and you don't really want to build a stack of systems and develop expertise in a set of systems that aren't going to survive because they're going to be superseded by emerging technology. So that's what I face. Is I'm kind of a procrastinator by nature, apparently, because I'm still not settled on what it is that should be the platform for various applications that I think could be deployed. And every week something new comes out that seems to be directly relevant to implementing something and making it easier for me to implement. So I believe in the weight equation for AI, but I think it's a mistake if you think that it's equivalent to the spaceship analogy.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, anyways, it's less of a question of should you wait or not, but more of, I guess, a combination of philosophy. I'm pro tech, so it's like go experiment, try out some new stuff, see, throw the spaghetti against the wall and see if it sticks, that kind of thing. And so I think it's more of a level of investment. Like how much can you or your company invest in AI? And I came across an interesting equation that somebody had built out regarding. They were a programmer, and they built out this little equation on how to determine, should your company invest? And that's probably a fairly simplified approach, but the idea behind it is that you're gonna reach a certain point where, and I agree with Andy on this, is you've got to get started, especially with AI. You have to get started. You have to invest a little bit, but I think the degree of that investment is something that you have to calculate.
Yeah. Yep. So on Twitter, there's a person named Aryaman Bharat, Bharat, and if you just search weight equation in quotes, right, so that it's fully searchable, that'll come up in Twitter. And he has put together some explanation around this and an equation that he is suggesting. So he is suggesting that basically you're looking at start the project now, right? Or wait for the vendor's solution. And the difference between start the project now and wait for the vendor's solution alongside the cost of waiting, right? So, and the cost of waiting is the revenue opportunity cost, right? And these are things that if you are a business analyst or you have one on your team, these should make some sense in that context. So the revenue opportunity cost is the total annual revenue minus the annual glide path revenue divided by the number of employees minus the number of employees to keep the lights on. Right. So it's the total annual revenue of your business minus the annual glide path revenue, which
what is that?
I understand. Dandy, do you have a
Glide
real
path
explanation?
revenue. I just don't know what that means.
I think what that means is that what would the revenue path B if you didn't make the investment.
Okay.
Okay. And it may be yes. And the number of employees minus the number of employees to keep the lights on. So the number of employees who would not be involved in the change, right, is the keep the lights on employees. And this actually ended up with like a real calculation. Like the cost of doing it is $1,000 and the upside of it is 50,000 or 10,000, right? So then what is your what, like, is that worth it? Is that enough of a shift to be able to move? Now, what this doesn't take into consideration are things like the quality of your data, right? Like,
Mhm.
how good are the numbers that you're putting into this? The like experience of the organization, like change management, the actual cost of change in terms of productivity and like how fast innovation can happen within your employees while they're working through the change that is happening. But I thought it was really interesting, and this was an actual equation. Like, it's not a
Yeah.
theoretical weight equation. This is a potential. You could look at it in your business weight equation.
Yeah.
That's good.
Good, Jimmy.
No, I was just going to agree. And who was that again? That you found that, Beth?
Aryaman Bharat.
Okay.
ARYAMAN BHARAT.
Okay. So that sounds really familiar to what I was reading before, and I think I was reading Javed Nassar, who had posted it on Hacker News a while ago, back in October.
Yeah.
So I think this is a concept that's been around for a little while, right? So, but what I really liked about it, it was a simplified approach to just getting a good idea of whether
Right.
that's something to move forward on. So yeah, there's a few assumptions in it and things like that, but it's a quick equation to go, oh, well, this might be something that we want to invest significantly in or not. And that just goes back to my earlier point of there's got to be some sort of investment. I think it's just that level of investment that you're looking for.
Well, look, I don't think you can go wrong. I mean, you guys all kind of said it, but here's a couple things I'm thinking of. One, you can't go wrong on early education. So if we just take like a base that doesn't put you in any silo, early education, what do I mean? Prompt engineering, just generally getting more used to using a tool like a ChatGPT. One of the easiest things you can do in your organization is pay for like a ChatGPT Plus account at $20 ish a head or whatever, or don't and use the free Bing side of it. That's okay too. Or don't wait for Google to come out and figure out what they're going to do with Gemini in a couple months or whatever, some open source model. Either way, whatever it is, getting more used to using these tools and how to prompt effectively to get the right size of answers. You can't really go wrong with that because those tools are going to help you in the future. But,
Right.
Andy, when you were talking about, what tool, I'm still not sure what tool. I do think businesses are being hit with this right now. I mean, some of the ones that come to mind, some of the big costs that Salesforce has put out there, the costs for implementing some of their big AI solutions. Then you have Copilot. I believe I just read an article yesterday that's a $100,000 investment. Now, that's not for a small company. It's going to be for companies that are capable of paying $100,000, whatever that comes out to, $6,000 a head. They had a number that came out to that. But these aren't small investments. And what happens if you do invest in Microsoft Copilot and you do the training and it gets into your learning systems and you get people to, make the transition and all the resistance that comes with change and everything else with change management, only to find out a year from now, there is an open source or something that doesn't commit you to a price model or something that's clearly as effective that your team could be using, and you've invested all this money. Now, that's not all the businesses that are going to be listening or the size of the businesses, obviously, but there are smaller ones. We've talked about this many times. Do I invest in this year-long subscription? Well, there's a possibility you do that, and in 6 months that tool is no longer as useful, or it's been overrun by or absorbed by some of the bigger players. So I think it works at all levels, right? There's always somebody saying, well, I don't want to put too much money into this and pay for this and get it approved and all the things that need to happen for me to get this approved. And honestly, if I'm the champion, I'm also worried too that I don't have any control over whether that tool is still the tool of the future. But my management may not care. They just may put that fully on me and go, well, Brian,
Right.
you're the one 6 months ago that swore to us that this was the thing to push towards. And now you're saying it's been overrun and there's a new tool. What about all the money we just invested into that? Now you're changing your mind. And the reality is, if you're a champion of AI, you are in a weird position at any company you're sitting in with upper management that may not be on the same page as you, because there's a good chance you are wrong or you may not be exactly right. And
Right.
so what does that do? I feel like maybe I'll put it back to you guys. Does that muffle some of the voices of AI and change, because there's a worry that we talk about this forever. In fact, I found out this morning that if you started listening right now, it would be Thursday before you were done listening to all our podcasts back to back, right? We have over 2.5 days of continuous, if you listen to them back to back on our podcast, of AI. Even so, if it was Thursday, I still don't think you would have the answer for this question, because it changes so much. So what do you guys think about that?
Well,
What do you, I mean, you know?
Well, see, that's a good point to bring up, and I think this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier. Is it's about the education, right? I think there's a basic investment of time and energy that in AI that everyone can do. There's not a there is a certain level, and that comes from the education, that comes from learning about AI, what it exists now, what it will look like or potentially look like in the future, and that all comes down to I would say the argument in that particular case, Brian, is that it's a matter of experience, right? So if you can educate yourself, or you can educate your teams about AI, how it works or what it is, and whether or not you commit to a specific tool or platform or framework, there is plenty of value in the research that goes into understanding what AI is and what exists, right? And there is more than enough examples of how to dip your toe in and experiment. I mean, Chat GPT is a great example. Here's $20. Go learn what transformers can do now, what LLMs can do right now, right? And then that knowledge and experience that you acquire by taking that time, to investing that time, can be applied to whatever the next tool is, right? Whatever the next Google thing is, whatever the next Microsoft thing is, and then you can bring that experience information to your managers, to your leaders, and say, hey, this is rapidly changing. I think at this point we should investigate investing X, Y, or Z, but come in with that caveat that, yeah, and this didn't exist 11 months ago, those kinds of things. But this goes back to the whole pro technology thing is, and for the weight equation, it is philosophically, it is better for us to continue forward, even if we may surpass ourselves somewhere down the line, just for getting that experience and exposure to whatever that technology is, doing it for the sake of doing it, right? Climbing Everest for climbing Everest's sake. And that's basically it.
Right, because what's not taken into consideration in this is the change that's happening in the people as we are adopting this, right? You're not just investing in the AI tech, you're also investing in your people engaging in a new system. And the things that will continue to pay off as investments are helping everyone in your organization start to think about the processes that they engage in, map those out, write them out, and then looking at those from a systems kind of perspective. What are the inputs? What are the outputs? What is the thing that happens that changes an input to an output? Because regardless of what you end up doing, whether it's automation, whether it's AI automation, whether it's an AI like large language model, whether it's like 5 agents that all of your employees get to have that go out and do their things, because in 2024 we're going to have agents. All of that will be made clearer and easier for people to understand or get a handle on if we have already started the conversation about what the processes are that you do and how those relate to looking at them as a system. Like that's, don't wait. The equation, nope. Now. Do it now. No wait equation on that.
Let's play devil's advocate, because I mean, Andy, you kind of did a little bit. You're like, well, look, I don't know that it applies directly, and I think a lot of people online, from my impression, said the same thing. Look, you send this ship now. By the way, that theoretical ship could get software updates. It can't get hardware updates. You're most likely not going to change the engine out, right? So if it's a new propulsion system, that's a different story. But Tesla's all the time now. It'll be totally normal to me to have cars as loss leaders. I think every model of a car manufacturer will consider the car itself to be a loss leader, and they'll make money on subscriptions. Right? Tesla's showing us that can happen right now because of updates to the software, which actually makes the car better in some way, whether it's autonomous driving or whatever the case is. So those things we know can happen. But let's play devil's advocate. Why would a business wait right now in AI? And maybe if it's not specifically, we universally agree on AI education, where are some places that might make sense for a business to hold and wait 6 months, wait till July 1 of 2024? Do you guys think there are any that you would suggest if you were consulting a company?
I'll posit, a subset of the companies out there thinking about AI investments. That subset, which is talking about building something that's customized internally to support business processes. Okay, and they have an IT organization, including engineers, and some of those engineers have some skills in developing code. Right. So we could either build something internally, or we can make the decision to have some external consulting organization and or a major vendor like Microsoft come in and build the application for us or install their thing. Well, you're wrestling with this question of actually spending a considerable amount of time and effort, on the part of your internal technology team. And it could be that 6 months from now, an AI-driven tool comes out that basically does everything that you would have built for yourself and is completely configurable and automatic. And so you ought to wait. Now, I think that's happening in the sort of the low-code tool space at the moment. So, right now there's several different vendors who offer these low-code development platforms. One of them is Flutterflow. Another one is Bubble.io. You can build applications that way, but they don't do everything. There are other parts of the system stack to deliver an application either internally or externally that have to be bolted on with those. And there are other tools that are there to kind of integrate and automate some of the interactions of those various tools. Somebody may shortly, though, package all of those essential functions that are very, very well aligned to what your application is and make it so that no one has to go through the complexity of doing all of that integration across multiple members of that system stack. Instead, here's a packaged solution that addresses my problem directly and is completely AI powered. It's not just probable. It's going to happen. Eventually, someone's going to provide that solution, and you might wait for that one. And I think that's a perfectly valid approach, especially if there isn't any strategic challenge right now driven by AI in the hands of competitors that is affecting your bottom line. Like if you have some time, you could get away with just pursuing literacy and educating your workforce and not make a systems investment in AI at this point in time.
So I'm
Yeah,
going to toss out something also, and I don't have an answer for it, but it engages the concept that the new model is not a software upgrade, right? So if you've trained on GPT-3, that does not mean that when GPT-4 comes out, you just run a patch, right? Deploy like the update. It's an entirely new training model. And this was something that was talked about when ChatGPT came out, right?
Right.
The organizations that spent millions of dollars training their own system on GPT-3 was now old LLM tech, right? Their capability, GPT-3's capability was less than GPT 3.5, than
It broke their
GPT-4.
automations, didn't it? In a lot of cases, didn't we
Right.
find out it broke automations? Yeah.
And it was such a significant leap. Like I wasn't paying attention in 2 to 3. I don't know if that was as significant a leap or if the companies that were adopting were a little more used to this kind of thing. But that's another piece of education. This is not a software upgrade. If you are investing in Copilot, that is a software upgrade to Microsoft's tech stack. But going from one GPT model to another GPT model, or even like the GPT model that's in Salesforce. Those are software upgrades. If you're doing this on your own, you are not just upgrading software, you are retraining on a whole new paradigm platform. And
So
that's
if we think,
a wait, kind of like, holy, yeah, wait till you understand that and can accept it, I guess.
we don't know. I don't know what I think as far as like, we'll call it GPT-5 because we don't have a better name for it, whether that will release in 2024. I think at points last year, I thought, of course it will, on the pace that we're on. And then there's other parts of me with things that happened to OpenAI and when Sam was ousted and brought back and that whole thing happened. I think, oh no, I think they might slow down a little bit. Plus, we know that it's incredibly expensive to train these models and things like that. So, will we have another one of those major leaps in 2024? All of us could take a guess at it, but the reality is we just don't know. So I think that's a really valid point, Beth, and I hadn't really considered that in terms of, yeah, it did. It broke. I remember it happening. People had good automations through Zapier and other places, and it broke them, or at least it diminished their results because they couldn't just simply use the same prompting. We saw it in Midjourney, by the way. Midjourney, similar situation where they came out and said, "Here's Midjourney version 6. You cannot prompt this like Midjourney version 5. It will not work. You need to relearn." They themselves said this. You need to relearn prompting for version 6. That's just the way it is. It's a different type of language. So I want to bring up
it's a little hyperbole because your 5.2 prompting works in Midjourney 6. It just does not get you the kind of images that are possible in Midjourney 6 if you prompt differently.
Let me bring this up really quick because I want to make sure we get to Greg's comment. And Jyunmi, let's run it to you to maybe wrap things up here. But Greg threw in a comment. Thanks, Greg. It says, waiting until the hallucination situation is ameliorated. I don't know that word. Is one thing to consider too. I'm assuming ameliorated means
made better. Made better. That's
made
right.
better. Okay. So waiting until the hallucination situation is made better is one thing to consider too. Yeah, I think that's another great point, Greg. My take on hallucination is that the last I really heard somebody and the people that I respect in the world of AI is we don't know that we will ever actually truly fix that or eradicate or eliminate hallucinations, that it may not be possible. That's at least the last I read on that. So I don't know if you can wait out hallucinations. But I do think through education, you can get better at getting around them or identifying them.
It's because it's always hallucinating, and we only call it a hallucination when it isn't accurate.
Yeah.
Right. So like the technique that it's doing, it's like, was this brave or stupid? Yes. It depends on the outcome, right? Like,
I was going to say hallucination is a feature, not a bug.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So I want I wanted to give close it up with just a little bit of a pushback on the whole weight situation. I think, Beth, you gave a perfect example of why you shouldn't wait. We know that AI tech is rapidly advancing, rapidly evolving. So I think this is a cost of doing business situation, right? We know this is going to happen. GPT-5 or whatever it's going to be called is coming out. We know that that's coming out. If we implement now, will it be good for our bottom line? Will we create a tool that we can use that will better our bottom line? GPT 3.5 still exists. They don't have to go to 4. Their
Right.
product can still use 3.5 and
Yeah.
not break their automations, right? So it's not like the knowledge in the previous tool doesn't exist anymore. If you're building something and it works with X, Y, or Z, then it's still gonna work. Just the new things coming out. So you have to spend the time to learn the new thing. It's just I think this is just an example of software development and technology development, but just at a more rapid scale than what people are used to, and that's what gives them the whoa. So this is just something that this is going to be the cost of doing business. We want to make this thing. This is within our mission as the company. This is going to be our product. We're going to make it as best as we can, right? And then when some new technology comes down, instead of 2 years, it's like 2 months, then we're just going to research that, see if it applies to our tool. Do we have to rebuild the tool? Do we have to, how are we going to move forward this? It's just a more rapid scale, but it's still the same problems and it's still the same development cycle, just faster. And it may just cost you more money, but that's the cost of doing business.
So I'll say that there is a development that I think will make a substantial difference in the way that you approach the design and development of AI applications in the business. And that is the emergence of sort of self-initiating agent technology. So once you right now we have the ability to prompt an AI and get a response from it. If we can, simplify our prompting down to presenting it with objectives and have a group of AIs that can all talk to each other, counsel and develop solutions, and then implement those solutions, toward the objective, that's going to change the model of how we design applications, because it's going to be shifting a lot of that design development process over to the agents.
Right. Good point.
Yeah, that should definitely streamline a lot of the process. Yeah.
Hey, listen,
people are working
Jimmy,
on
you
that,
brought it up too.
I haven't seen one yet that I can buy. I'm waiting for that.
Jimmy, you brought up a great point. It's good. We can end on this, but this is why I'm holding out with Windows XP. It's been good since 2001, and I'm not sure 6 months from now they're going to make something better. So I'm holding out. It's worked for me so far. It's a little glitchy, but Windows XP for the win. This tomorrow we got the news. Thursday, hopefully, we'll be talking about OpenAI's announcement about releasing the custom GPT store, but we actually don't know if that'll be ready by Thursday. So we hope that we're going to be talking about that on Thursday. Otherwise, we'll change it up. Friday, we're talking about Apple and what's to come for them. Already, they've got some announcements in early February that Carl was mentioning, but I think it's going to be a big year. Not just me. Lots of people think it's going to be a big year for Apple in 2024. One second, Beth. And also just wanted to give a quick plug. We have a great interview coming out on Thursday with Nicole Leffer. Highly recommend you guys checking that out. It'll be on all our platforms. You'll be able to get it. But if you want to hear a really cool interview, it's something we're going to be doing a lot more of in addition to these live shows. So we're not going to take away from these live shows. We'll still do these 5 days a week whenever possible. But we're going to start adding in some interviews along the way with people that we really admire and we think are doing some great things in AI, and share those along with you guys. Was that it, Beth, or do you have something different?
And it wasn't planned, but Nicole makes a really great point at the end of the interview about educating your people and why educating is necessary now. So go ahead and if you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and listen to that interview.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we'll be back tomorrow with the news. We'll see what comes up. Until then, everybody have a great Tuesday. Bye.
Aloha.